Hello everyone, and welcome to the first episode in the Batman villain saga that is part of the larger Defending the No-Kill Rule of Batman series. I figured that since I'm mostly pulling from Batman the Animated Series, I'd start with the first villain that we are actually introduced to in the animated series, that being Catwoman.
Ugh, but I like to get my claws into them.
In her first episode debut, The Cat in the Claw, Selina Kyle, aka Catwoman, is first introduced as a cat burglar, an obvious nod to the name, and an apt description of her occupation and obsession. With not much to go on by means of origin from Batman the Animated Series, we can only really go off of some of the other versions that either have her as someone who grew up in the slums of Gotham or the estranged daughter of crime boss Falcone. Either way, stealing became more of a way to survive than just a kleptomaniac obsession. Similar to characters like Aladdin and Robin Hood, she steals from the rich as a means to get by. On top of that, she sees the needs of others as something she could solve by being a professional thief. This humbling background also granted her an empathy for the vulnerable and less fortunate. From an early age, she was forced to be a thief to survive, which gave her the skills and experience that led her to be quite adept in the task and perhaps one of the best in Gotham. While this seems noble and justified given the circumstances, what separates her from being justified in stealing to survive is that she doesn't just stop when she has enough. Either due to her upbringing in the underbelly of Gotham or due to her nature as a thief, or perhaps a combination of the two, there's an undeniable side of Catwoman's character that does blatantly violate the law. The kleptomaniac nature of Catwoman is the reason she is an object of discussion for this video. Donning a cat-like costume, and with the help of her cat Isis, Catwoman frequently seeks jewels and wealthy artifacts, sometimes cat-related, to steal. Obviously stealing more than enough money to live, and also fund her double life as a wealthy socialite. She only ever steals from those who are rich or corrupt, and she always justifies her thievery by writing it off as taking from someone who has more than enough, or from someone who took advantage of others. That being said, someone like Batman sees Catwoman for what she is, a thief, and tries to apprehend her. In their first encounter, Batman catches her in the act of stealing jewelry. After this confrontation, the then ensuing chase has both Catwoman and Batman in a stalemate of acrobatic prowess, but a sudden shock leads to Catwoman narrowly escaping. Before she leaves, she notices that her cat Isis is no longer following her. Looking around, she sees that Isis is on the ground, about to be hit by a truck. And it would have hit Isis too if Batman hadn't dove in front of the truck to save the cat. Seeing a more compassionate side of Batman breeds a newfound appreciation for him that leads to a fire to grow in the heart for the mysterious and elusive figure. This becomes a really interesting dynamic when Batman also develops feelings for Catwoman, but the situation is made all the more intriguing when a wealthy social gathering sees Bruce Wayne and Selina Kyle meeting at a charity event. Unaware of each other's alter ego, in this event, proceeds go to animal conservation. Naturally, Selina bids the most on the conservation auction for a mountain lion reserve that incidentally also has the prize of a date with eligible bachelor and billionaire Bruce Wayne. Mostly doing it for charity, Selina begrudgingly accepts the date out of a sense of peer pressure, although she finds it very difficult to take the date seriously when her heart now belongs to that of Batman, who could never be replaced by a man such as Bruce Wayne. Alright, pause for a moment. Can y'all believe that this was the first episode? I mean, this was a fantastic setup. Both characters had alter egos, and each of their alter egos had already met the other at this point, and then one of those characters can't see themselves liking a character because they like their alter ego better. The obvious nod to them both being the same character yet unable to see the other for who they truly are reflects a more Shakespearean level of storytelling that I feel many will understand but few will truly appreciate. I wish more shows got written with this level of double life intrigue. Alright, back to Catwoman. Later on, Selina finds out that despite the conservation auction, the land is still going to a private investor that plans to turn the area into a resort. This leads to Selina using Catwoman as a means to investigate the shady dealings of the private organization. It is this search that Catwoman makes the discovery that the private group is actually a criminal organization known as the Red Claw, and they plan on ransoming a deadly toxin for money while risking the lives of all the mountain lions as well as many lives in Gotham. Unfortunately, when Catwoman discovers this information, she is also discovered and quickly outnumbered by the Red Claw forces. This is where the story focuses back on Batman. The next interaction with Catwoman and Batman occurs when Catwoman is trying to save a mountain lion reserve from being the pawn of a criminal organization. Bruce Wayne, being the world's greatest detective, puts two and two together when he finds a cat hair on Selina's clothes that looks suspiciously like it belongs to ISIS. When he goes to her house to confront her, he finds out that she has been kidnapped by the Red Claw, a terrorist group that planned to use a plague virus on the mountain lion reservoir as a way to ransom money from the Gotham police. When Batman arrives, he is also outnumbered and tied up alongside Catwoman. Red Claw then sets the virus to detonate and leaves. With this opening, Catwoman is able to take the opportunity to flee, cutting through the ropes with her claws. Catwoman then frees them both. They then escape together with each other's help, where they then confront the organization while Batman risks his life to neutralize the virus. Catwoman's first instinct is to plead with Batman to escape with her, showing that she does indeed care for him. Batman, however, refuses and sends her out to escape while he kills the virus and narrowly escapes. After aiding in the apprehension of the Red Claw, Catwoman returns home to be confronted by Batman. She then asks if he has told the police about her heist, to which Batman responds, "No, I didn't want you to be taken away like a common criminal." Catwoman then says, "So you do care?" To which we get a heartbreaking moment where Batman handcuffs her and responds, "More than you will ever know." Just as Catwoman puts working for the good of others over being a thief, so too does Batman hold justice above all else, even over his own personal feelings. I personally challenge anyone in the comments to find me a hero more selfless than Batman. There may be some, but I don't think that'll be an easy feat to accomplish. To those that think that it was conniving of Batman to abuse the trust of someone who trusted him and saved his life, Batman holds justice higher than anything else, and that includes his own personal connections. He is honorable enough to understand that Selina is not a bad person, and that she should not be treated like a common criminal, but at the end of the day, Catwoman is a thief, and no matter the reason for stealing, unpunished thievery sets a bad precedent, especially in a place like Gotham City. Theft being one of the more popular crimes, to let it go unpunished would be hypocritical. Though it can be argued that the people she steals from don't deserve the money, that shouldn't make her immediately entitled to it, especially if she steals beyond her own needs. It is reasonable to assume that if it had not been for Batman, Catwoman would still have ended up in trouble with the police or with a criminal organization that would see her killed as opposed to arrested. Case in point, in the episode Cat Scratch Fever, Selina finds herself involved with crime boss Roland Daggett, who is drugging animals with cruel chemicals for experimentation. The result is that she becomes ill whenever ISIS infects her, with a manufactured virus that forces Batman to make a cure for her, but also leads to Batman discovering the scheme and putting a stop to it. With all of the backlash against the no-kill rule, let's see how it shapes up against Catwoman. While it is true that just like every villain that is in this list, she is a criminal by all interpretations of the law. Still, it is hard to label Catwoman as a villain, at least in relativity to many on this list. In these episodes, we do see an almost entirely altruistic Catwoman, which shows the more justifiable side that few of Batman's villains do possess. In this episode, we even see leniency given to Selina for her charitable works whenever she is put on trial. Not to say that all of her crimes are justified because of this, but the entirety of a character's actions and motives need to be considered to fully dissect their character as a whole. So in the end, we can see that Catwoman is a thief by trade, by nature, and by compulsion. But ultimately, this is the extent of her villainy and the most that anyone can actually call her out for. Despite the criminal nature of her profession, she never really hurts anyone. Anyone that she does steal from is often so incredibly wealthy that it wouldn't hinder their quality of life in any way. Not to mention the only things that she does steal are diamonds and jewelry, symbols of decadence proudly worn by Gotham's upper crust in spite of the living situations of everyday citizens and those less fortunate. Given her upbringing, it's hard to blame her for the actions of Catwoman, though it can be argued that her wealth is often just as wrongfully accumulated as most of Gotham's elite. Even so, Selina proves to be one of the most altruistic, wealthy socialites that Gotham has ever seen, second only to Bruce Wayne himself. It is honestly quite sad to think that Selina Kyle could have been just like Bruce if she had been born into wealth like he was, but perhaps it was for the best that she wasn't. For one, we wouldn't be able to discuss such an interesting and nuanced villain, and two, she might not have become such an altruistic person. She frequently donates to charitable causes and uses the Catwoman persona to aid in the protection of cats that are being threatened or abused. The problem with Gotham's elite is that, whether intentional or not, most of them separate themselves from the general populace. This, in turn, makes them blind and ignorant to the plight and desperation of the victims of Gotham's corrupt systems. If it weren't for the death of his parents, Bruce Wayne likely would have just grown up to be a typical billionaire playboy philanthropist, whose only superpower is being rich. Many people think that that's what Batman is now, but I digress. He's got an IQ of 192, he's mastered almost every single martial art, and he solos almost any foe with prep time. Now tell me that is not a superpower. But anyways, Batman learned a level of discipline from that horrific tragedy that turned him into justice incarnate. Such a deep connection to Gotham's underbelly is what makes him such a good hero. In the words of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., a threat to justice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. In the same way, Batman and subsequently Bruce Wayne will frequently do all they can to help all citizens of Gotham, but particularly those most disadvantaged and those most vulnerable. If we were to consider anyone that was justified in being killed by Batman, and who to break the no-kill rule for, Catwoman would likely rank towards the bottom of that list. Even though Batman concedes that Catwoman is guilty and arrests her himself, there would be no justifiable reason for him to take that a step further. Even if she were to become a repeat offender, the level of crimes that she commits are negligible when compared to those that I will discuss later, which for now leaves the no-kill rule fully justified and understandable given all of the circumstances. Unfortunately, later villains will not be as easy to justify. If you made it to the end, I just want to say it means a lot, and I'm glad that you found this entertaining enough to stick around this far. And if you enjoyed the video and want to see more content, make sure to let me know by liking the video, subscribing to the channel, and feel free to comment down below any thoughts that you have on any topics that you might want to see me cover in the future. The next video that we will be doing in this series will be on Clayface, and should be out next week. But once again, thanks for watching.